Oh man, that feels good. Oh jeez. I mean, this is the first time I've ever done this. Oh, pelvic widening? You sure? That feels a bit advanced, but alright, I'll trust you. This isn't what it looks like. Massaging chair, I promise. If you're looking for a car that will satisfy your need for speed or make you feel alive, then you're probably going to look for a sports car. If, however, you need to ferry around friends and family, then an SUV or a wagon may get the nod. However, if you need to ferry around friends and family, but you want to feel extremely safe, comfortable, and even relaxed, even in Sydney traffic, then you need to introduce yourself to this, the Genesis GV70. The Genesis GV70 range begins with a 2.5 litre 4-cylinder turbo petrol model coming in at 66,400 Australian dollars. Today, however, we have the pleasure of piloting the top of the line 3.5 litre twin turbo V6, complete with the luxury package, which comes in at just over 100,000 Australian dollars on road. That's a lot of money, but there's no denying that you are getting a lot of car. Looks may be subjective, but there can be no denying that the GV70 has road presence. The front end has a lovely large grille which Genesis calls their signature crest grille and is flanked by quad headlights which light up the road spectacularly. Coming around to the side, and Genesis have done a sensational job of making the GV70 look athletic, incorporating sweeping body lines which help break up the large amount of bodywork. The rear has a truly beefy, sporty and elegant feel to it, and being the 3.5 litre model, there are two large circular exhaust tips that sit within a beautifully sculpted lower section with two striped brake lights matching the styling of the headlights up front. The one part of the car that I feel like is going to really divide opinion though are these 21-inch wheels. Now some people may really like them. I, however, though, seem to think they remind me of a waffle iron. I mean, it gets pretty hot here in Australia and right now it's 30 odd degrees. I feel like I could pretty much throw some batter on that bad boy and enjoy some pancakes in no time. What I think we can all agree on though is just how beautiful this interior is. Honestly, I know it gets said a lot, but as soon as you jump into the GV70, you can just feel the high quality materials. I mean, every touch point is nice and soft to touch. Now, granted, we do have this in a rather questionable spec. This has a red leather interior, not really my choice, but if we just look past the hue they've used here, everything is nice and soft. So this steering wheel is just beautiful to hold. There's a real sponginess to it without feeling dodgy. All the metal they've used here is really high quality. So on the indicator stalks, the engine start stop, even here in the middle, your center console, so your drive modes, your buttons for the infotainment, etc., all really high quality. Now, speaking of the leather, as I said, let's just ignore the color of it. We have beautiful diamond quilting. For the front two seats, we have heating, we have cooling. As I mentioned, for the driver, we have massaging function as well, which is awesome. The ventilation is the thing that I love the most. I mean, as I said, it's about 30 odd degrees today and I've just turned that on for my drive, just wafting along in pure comfort. It's fantastic. In front of me, we have this 14.5-inch screen, which really does dominate proceedings. It's beautifully high resolution. Like, it is really, really crisp. There's no noticeable lag. It's very responsive. They do a very good job of just showing the amount of information that you may need. One questionable part though is that if you are using Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, it won't use the whole screen. So that's a little bit strange. And also you do have to plug your phone in to use Apple CarPlay, which is a little bit odd, but you can get around it, that's fine. As I said, it's a beautiful, beautiful display. And then moving on to the gauge cluster in front of you, that is also extremely high resolution, very fast response time. You can show a myriad of options, whether you want to see how much power and torque you're using, whether you want to see where the torque's going to which wheel, or whether you just want your basic trip computer functions, it's all there for you. Now, as far as storage options go, we've got tons. So we obviously have the glove box. We've got this massive cubby in here, which is quite deep actually, has a little pull-out tray for whatever reason. We have this little cubby which houses the wireless charging port. It also has your two USB ports, which are important if you want to do Apple CarPlay because it can't do it wirelessly. Each door has a generous size bin, and also we have that in the back. We've got mag pockets in the back. And also, while I'm talking about the rear of the car, the rear two seats do also get heating. They don't get cooling, but they do get heating. And also the climate control. It's dual zone up front, it's single zone out the back, which is good. So it'll get rid of a few arguments on long road trips. We have this massive sunroof. which thankfully there is a cover for, but it is pretty beautiful how large it is, especially on a nice cool day. Just looking up to see the sky, it's pretty nice. One gripe I do have with the interior was the choice of a rotary dial for the infotainment as well as the transmission, and compounding that decision by putting them right next to each other. On more than one occasion, moments where I wanted to change gear resulted in cycling through media menus, and on one occasion where a menu change was required, almost resulted in an unintended trip from drive to reverse. Not exactly ideal if you're in a hurry to execute a 3-point turn. Now, speaking of tech, this car might as well be Harris Farm because it has all the fruit. If you like acronyms, if you like safety gear, then this car is for you, because there is not a safety feature I can think of that doesn't exist in this car. I'm just going to scroll them up quickly because I'm not going to be able to remember them all. There is tons. If you're safety Sam, or if you're just worried about safety on the road, this car is definitely for you. Speaking of safety tech and moving back into the interior, within the gauge cluster there's a really cool function here. When you use your indicator stalk, on each wing mirror there are actually cameras mounted, and they show your blind spots really beautifully actually. And it's actually quite handy because the vision in this car out front isn't too bad, but when you go to look over to the passenger's side, that C-pillar is quite large and bulky, so it can be a little bit tricky to see what's behind you, whereas those cameras and the size of the wing mirrors actually give you a lot of confidence so you know what's around you. Of course, we've also got 360-degree camera, reversing camera, front-facing camera. As I said, this has all the tech you could possibly want. Even a cool little feature which does a nice little beep to let you know that the car in front of you has gone away if it feels like you're not paying enough attention. So that's kind of nice. Now, just before we go for a drive, as I said, this car is all about making you feel calm and relaxed. So in the infotainment, you've got DAB radio, you've got Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Bluetooth, etc. You also have another feature called Sounds of Nature. Now, I'm not overly sure why you would want to do this, but if you've ever wanted to listen to a crackling fire or maybe rolling ocean waves or even an open air cafe, well, then this is the car for you because you can do just that. So once again, I'm not overly sure why you'd want to, but I guess it's kind of nice to know that you can. Anyway, I think it's time we go for a drive. So out on the road, the GV70 is actually just beautiful to drive. I mean, it is a very large vehicle. It's about 2 ton. It does feel quite wide, but once you get used to that, the suspension does a great job of soaking up the bumps, especially in comfort mode. If you do want to show it some corners, then you could always put it into sport mode, and it does a fairly decent job of controlling its heft. Better than you'd expect. I mean, you're not going to be setting lap records, but it is pretty decent. Power-wise, I actually think that the GV70 in this trim has amazing power. It does 0 to 100 in 5.1 seconds apparently. Once again, you're not going to win any drag races, but what that means is you never feel like this car is lethargic. It always feels like it has enough power to get up and boogie, to move. If you're on the highway, you need to do a quick overtake, then that isn't going to be an issue. As far as wind noise goes, there is a little bit that you can notice, especially on a day like today where it is quite windy. It does seem to catch on the roof racks. Tyre roar isn't actually too bad considering we're rolling on 21-inch wheels. I actually think it handles that pretty well. And apart from that, there's not a lot of noise that enters the cabin, so it is quite a calming, relaxing sort of place. The one noise that you will notice if you have the seat ventilation on is you can hear that behind you. I don't think it's anything too bad, and especially I think it's worth the trade-off of having that comfort of having ventilated seats. Now, one element that can get frustrating is some of the tech that we have on board, such as lane departure warning, lane keep assist, etc. It is very sensitive and a little bit overbearing in my opinion, so you'll constantly have little beeps and bops going off at you. If you're coming up to a red light camera here in Sydney, Australia, we have speed and red light cameras, and with our speed cameras, depending on the time of day, will depend on what speed you should be doing. So because the GV70 will read the road signs and display for you what speed you should be doing, it errs on the side of caution. So if it's a 60k zone and you're coming up to it and during particular times of the day it's a 40k zone, it will just always assume it's a 40k zone. And what will happen then is as you come up to the speed camera, you'll start getting a whole bunch of beeps, warnings, etc. going off, thinking that you're basically going to lose your license when in actual fact it's a 60 zone. So that is something that could be quite annoying for some people. Others may just appreciate the safety aspect, I'm not sure, but just something to be aware of. Another aspect we probably should discuss at some point is fuel economy, or lack of. So I've been driving around for just over a week now in these sorts of conditions, a little bit of highway driving but not much, and at the moment I'm sitting on 14.7 litres per 100. So this thing will drink petrol. I suppose some people are going to think, well, it's a 3.5 litre twin turbo petrol, of course it's going to do that. But yeah, it's a little bit eye-watering at just how much it's drinking petrol, but you know, I suppose you've got to accept that. The three things that I love about this car: the amazing interior materials. Just all touch points feel so high-end, they're lovely to touch, nice and soft. The looks, both inside and out. I honestly think that Genesis have nailed the design of this car and then compounded that with the interior. Third is the fact that it makes me feel relaxed driving it, which is no mean feat considering I've been driving this around in Sydney commuter traffic. But overall, the GV70 just makes you want to drive sedately and relaxed. The things I don't like: number one is the rocking back and forth when stopping. I thought perhaps this was just due to the comfort suspension being soft, but it happens even in Sport or Sport Plus. Secondly, the transmission and media rotary dials, as I've covered off. I just think it was such a silly choice to do this design and also to have them right next to each other. Lastly is just how large the GV70 feels on the road. It just feels like a big car, which granted I assume you will get used to, but it may be something that you need to keep in mind. So what do you think of the Genesis GV70? Let me know down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and to see my full written review, head over to exhaustnotes.com.au. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.